Lesson 4.2, ratios and rates, and how do you write ratios and rates? And we're going to find out that ratios and rates are slightly different, or a rate is a ratio, but a ratio is not always a rate. And so we're going to start off with our friends here, the eagle and the birds, and we're going to find out officially now, this is when we find out the 3 ways to write our ratios. So a bird rescue group is caring for 3 eagles, 2 hawks, 5 owls. You can compare the number of different types of birds using ratios, and there's 3 ways to write them. So we can use words, that's the word TO. TO. We can write as a fraction with a fraction bar. I'm going to make that bigger, 5/3. Or we can use the colon sign, so 5, 2, 3. All right, and then the second thing we want to make sure we catch on here is that ratios can be written to compare a part to a part to a whole, or a whole to a part. So we have 3 different types of ratios going on here. All right, part to part to whole, whole to part. What's happening here is we're flipping the words part and whole because, again, order matters. So let's take a look at our examples. And I'm going to rewrite down here, I'm going to write I had 3 eagles, 2 hawks, and 5 owls. I'm going to summarize that information from up above so I have it handy when I go to do this. So first thing what they want is write the ratio with words as a fraction and with a colon, and we're going to talk about the type of ratio then. So owls to hawks. So owls to hawks. And kind of like the formulas that we've learned in chapter 10, chapter 11, it's almost like a little form you can substitute in. So O, go get your O, owls, 5. And then your colon or your TO to hawks, hawks was 2. So 5 to 2. Now, when I go to write the fraction, the first, this is called a term, goes on top, second term goes on the bottom. All right, so that have to maintain that order. And with my colon, 5 to 2. Now, they're calling this a part to part because each bird is a part of all of the birds at the rescue. All right, so one part, the part that is the owls, and the part that is the hawks. Next, they want eagles to total birds. So I want you to notice over here that now we get into part to whole. So the whole is the total number of birds at the rescue. All right, so that's important to note, and if you don't have that written down, you should. So I do need to come up here and add up my total number of birds. So I had 3 and 2 makes 5, another 5 makes 10. So I have 10 birds equals my whole. All right, so important to know for this next part. So eagles was 3, 2, the total number of birds is 10. Again, got to maintain my order, 3, 2, 10. So I'm going to read that fraction bar as a 2, and 3, 2, 10. Did I say 2 over here? I think I did. 3 to 10, sorry, I'm not sure. 3 to 10, so 3 parts, that's the eagles, to 10 whole, the total number of birds there. And now just notice that we're flipping this around. We're going to go whole to part. So my total birds is coming first to the hawks. So 10 was my total. Hawks was a 2. So 10 to 2 and 10 to 2. All right. And I do want to look at the bottom right here. The ratio of owls to total number of birds is 5 to 10. Explain what this ratio means. So it means that for every 5 owls, there is a total of 10 birds at the rescue. All right, so we're really giving meaning to 5 to 10. 5 owls makes up every 10 birds. So they're half, right? We can simplify that. We'll learn that later. So, But if I have 5 to 10 or 5 to 10, basically that comes down to, as equivalent fractions, right? 1/2. One of every two birds would be owls. But we keep it back at the original 5 to 10. Next page. So over on page 218, some really important vocabulary. They introduce it here in the beginning, but really get much more involved with rates and unit rates a few lessons down the line. All right, so I'm going to read the introduction up here. A restaurant sells veggie burgers at the rate of $4 for one burger. What rate gives the cost of 5 veggie burgers? Write the rate for 5 burgers using words as a fraction with a colon. So this is huge here. A rate is a ratio that compares two quantities. So remember, ratio compares two quantities. That's nothing new. But what makes it a rate is that these two quantities have different units of measure. That is huge. So what that means is that and I don't know if you can see it very well. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. So they gave me $4 to one burger. So my units here, up on top, my units are the dollars, and my units on the bottom is burgers. All right. So if you think back to the last page, I had birds. I had eagles, hawks, and owls all making up total birds. So although they were different types of birds, they were still all birds. So that was not a rate, it was just a ratio, all birds. When I had counters a couple pages ago, yellow and red, different colors, but still the same thing, counters, so that's the same unit of measure. Okay, unit of measure. But if I get into gallons, so gallons per hour, or miles per gallon, or meters per second. Okay, these are all different measurements, different units of measure. Some being capacity, some being time, some being distance, but they're different top and bottom. So that is a rate. All right, we're going to do lots and lots with rate. Then another special circumstance here, and let me come out just a little bit, is a unit rate. A unit rate, unit means one. So a unit rate is a rate that makes a comparison to one unit. The unit rate for the cost per veggie burger is $4 to one burger, or $4 to one burger. Usually when we do unit rates, the one is on the bottom of the fraction, or it's the second term. All right, so we're usually, especially when it comes to cost. So if I have money, usually I'm going to put a little note up here. So usually put money on the top and then the one unit on the bottom, or first term, second term, because we like to think of how much money does it cost for one thing. It doesn't usually make sense for, like, say, $1 for part of something. That doesn't really make sense. So it's how much money does one item or one unit cost. All right. So they want us to complete the table down here to find the rate that gives the cost for 5 veggie burgers. All right. So they want us to think one burger costs $4. So 2 veggie burgers cost $4 plus another $4. Or you can think of it as multiplication, 2 times $4. Again, tables are really nice. Here's my unit rate because it's for one, $4 to one. So 2 times 4 gives me 8. 2 times 1 gives me 2. So whatever I do to the top, I do to the bottom. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Right? Doesn't it? Remember fractions, equivalent fractions? Well, equivalent rates, equivalent ratios are going to be the same thing. If I multiply top by something, I have to multiply the same by the bottom. So 3 times $4 gives me $12. So 3 times 1 gives me 3 burgers. 4 times 1 gives me 4. 4 times $4, 16. And then I have my 5 times 1 is 5, and my 5 times $4. So to answer the question, it's going to cost me $20 to get 5 burgers. So the table shows that 5 veggie burgers costs $20. Or they want us to go 20 to 5 burgers, 20 to 5 burgers, or $20 to 5 burgers. So we just wrote it to 3 different ways: TO, fraction bar, or colon. And just to do a few examples with you for what you might have to do on your homework here. So write the rate in 3 different ways. So they want us the cost of 3 veggie burgers. So we come back up here, and 3 burgers was $12. So the cost of 3, so it's going to be $12 to 3 burgers, or 12 to 3, or 12 to 3. And with rates, really important part is you need to include the units. So although I'd had the dollar signs everywhere, I didn't have my burgers. All right, so when you are doing rates, you need to write the units. Underline, underline, exclamation, exclamation. All right, you gotta write the units. All right, let's flip over the next page. They do a mix of rates and ratios up here, and let's just remember order matters. So here on 219, write the ratio of the number of red bars to blue stars. So now be careful, because I bet a whole lot of people, since the stars are on top, they'd count up the stars 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and they would go 8 to 3. But that is wrong, because they wanted bars, red bars. Okay, so red bars to blue stars. So I need to do this part first. The 3 goes on top, and my 8 stars goes on the bottom. So be really careful to pay attention to order. And I think this is pretty simple. You can handle writing it 2 different ways. Let's just look at one little example here yet with a table. Marilyn saves $15 per week. Complete the table to find the rate that gives the amount saved in 4 weeks. Write the rate in 3 different ways. So we knew that in 1 week, she is saving $15, all right? So I can multiply by 2 times 2 times 2. If I went here, it was times 3 times 3. So 15 times 3 is 45. Times 4 times 4. So 15 times 4 is going to give me $60. And they did the times 5. So write the rate in 3 different ways. And it was the amount in 4 weeks. So it was $60 to 4 weeks, or $60 to 4 weeks, or $60 to 4 weeks. And notice that each time I did my label of units, dollars, weeks. All right. All right, and the last one I want to do for lesson 2 here is still on page 219. I want to do number 11 with you. A little different example. So there are 24 baseball cards in 4 packs. So cards, packs, 24 to 4. Complete the table to find the rate that gives the number of cards in 2 packs here. And write this rate in 3 different ways. So sometimes they're not going to give you the unit rate. You might have to back it out. You have to figure it out. What is the pattern, all right? So again, we can look at patterns 2 different ways, going across and across, but you have to remember that that's this pattern and this pattern, adding or subtracting, is not going to be the same, all right? So whatever I add or subtract to move along up here is not the same as what I'm adding or subtracting down here. It is the same each step across. But I prefer to think of things this direction, the multiplication or division. So if I have 24 cards in 4 packs, and I want to know, so how many cards is that per pack? So I'm going to go 24 divided by 4 to get 6. So I know that I have 6 cards per pack. And so times 2, 6 times 2 would be 12. All right, 1 times 3 is 3, 6 times 3 is 18. 1 times 4 is 4, 6 times 4 is 24. So, or you could think about it as add 6, add 6, add 6 for every time you add 1 down here, all right? So if you're multiplying or dividing though, the pattern from here to here in each set of blocks has to stay the same. Divide by 6 to get 4. 18 divided by 6 is 3. 12 divided by 6 is 2. So just be careful of which way you're thinking about the patterns, all right? And they wanted to know for the 2 packs and the number of cards. So it was 12 cards to 2 packs. And they do want you to write it the other 2 way. 12 cards to 2 packs. 12 cards to 2 packs. And I just abbreviated for right now, but we should really write it out. All right, pretty simple. Moving on to lesson 3.